morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Glenn O'Rourke, and I'm the president of Trumpet of Patriots. We are a registered political party in Australia, registered through the Australian Electoral Commission. Our party will be running candidates for the House of Representatives and the Senate at the upcoming election. We're pleased today to announce that Clive Palmer has been elected as our chairman and spokesman for Trumpet of Patriots. Trumpet of Patriots invites all Australians to join with us, Clive Palmer, to drain the swamp in Canberra. And more importantly, we need to end the declining living standards in our country. During COVID, Clive Palmer, with his own money, at the request of the Australian government, bought 37 million doses of hydroxychloroquine. They were put on to the Australian government stockpile, only to be destroyed by Scott Morrison. And only just last month, through his own private company, Clive Palmer donated $5 million to food bank. That has the ability to fund up to 10 million meals to feed hungry Australians. Recently, Tucker Carlson paid tribute to Mr. Palmer and his contribution to the community. I would now like to share this video with you and all people of Australia. And the realities are that after this video, Clive Palmer will come out and make some announcements that will change the history of Australia and align this country with the changes that are currently happening in the world. Thank you.
Actually, the more money people have, the more tied they are to the current system, and the more afraid they are of losing their money. So actually, the richest people are often the most cowardly people, and the billionaires who run my country are the most cowardly people, and some of the dumbest, weirdly. And so we have no billionaires, or very few. We have a lot of billionaires. It's America, right? Huge, very richest country in the world for now. None of them are speaking the truth. They're not saying what they really think. They're aligned with power against the population. And I just admire Clive Palmer so much for doing that. And people who are like, oh, well, he's a billionaire, he can say whatever he wants. Really, then why aren't the other billionaires saying whatever they want? I mean, they're on the side of the people with the rubber bullets. You need rich people on your side. It's just true. You have to have someone with power on your side.
Authorised by Neil Faberger for the Trumpet of Patriots, Merrimack.
Good morning, everybody. Trumpet of Patriots will stand candidates in the House of Reps and the Senate at this election. The party believes in the policies of Donald Trump, which has shown to be effective in bringing management back on track. Peter Dutton has stated that he's no Donald Trump, and we agree with him. Albanese's presided over a declining standard of living for our country, and each and every year he served as Prime Minister. Australia needs Trump policies. Australians want them, as the opinion polls have shown us and will show you in the coming days. Right? We don't need to be welcomed to our own country. We respect all Australians. We don't need to be individually acknowledged by people that we don't know and have never met. We need to respect all people who made Australia what it is today, a wonderful country. That includes the contribution made by people from every nation in the world. All Australians are equal under the Southern Cross. Trumpet of Patriots will make Australia great again. The Australian governments of all political persuasions have pretended that Australia is in good economic shape. by using immigrants' wealth every single year for over 20 years and boast them as the government's achievements to boost our economy, when in reality the government have done nothing for the people that they represent. Too many people in Parliament are worried about not holding their seat because they know they wouldn't get a job outside. I've been in this place. I've seen the quality of the people that operate in the opposition and in the government, who share together picnics on weekends, social outings, who don't really dislike each other. Actually, they're quite adapted to each other. And that's why Australia hasn't had real democracy. That's why we've had a uniparty for many years. And that's why we haven't brought the hard questions to government departments that Elon Musk is doing in Washington at the moment, and that we've wasted the public's money. Two Australian governments have prevented too much immigration destroys our infrastructure, roads, schools and hospitals. It creates congestion and the destruction of communities. Australia should be for all Australians living here. Trumpet of Patriots will put Australians first and make Australia great again. Our policy is to recognise that there are two genders, a male and a female. We don't want men in women's sports, and we don't want males dressed as females confusing our children in our schools. All children should be entitled to a normal, safe environment in our schools and public toilets. All children must be entitled to decide who they are and what their sexual orientation is when they're adults, not have it foisted on them before they've even commenced puberty. Now it's time to bring Kevin Rudd back from Washington. There's not too many ambassadors in Washington that have insulted the President of the United States. Kevin Rudd ranks alone in that. And Australia needs an effective representative in Washington that can support our nation in its time of toil, in a time when our living standards are declining and when our people are hungry. There's over 3.7 million Australian households in this country that don't have enough food, that can't afford it because of the cost of living that the Labor Party's brought upon them, because of the excess spending and waste in our public service. We find Australian children going to bed at nights hungry. Ask the chairman of Food Bank, ask the people that are out there in the front line what the situation is. I'd now like to introduce to you the Trumpet of Patriots candidate for the seat of Hunter in the House of Representatives, the leader of our party, and given the strong support of our party policies by the Australian community, I believe the next Prime Minister of Australia, Sue Ellen Wrightson. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. And good morning, everyone. The world is changing. In the United States of America, government waste and corruption is finally being exposed. In Australia, for too long, Australians have suffered from a duopoly of power. The Labor and Liberal Party have been doing deals designed to take the Australian people's money for their own uses. The Trumpet of Patriots will stand candidates in the House of Representatives and the Senate at the upcoming election. I am proud to lead a party at this election, and I invite all like-minded Australians to join our party as we bring real change to the system. The simple reason that the cost of living is so high is because Australians are actually being ripped off by the political system and the lobbyists that support them. We can bring down the cost of living by bringing down the cost of energy. We can solve the housing crisis by fast trains from our capital cities to regional Australia to open up affordable land for housing with a 20-minute commute to the CBD. We want to make sure that Australia is for all Australians and that the Australian government does what is best for the Australian people. This is an opportunity for members of the Labor and Liberal parties to join the Trumpet of Patriots a party that only has the interests of all Australians at its heart. The Trumpet of Patriots believes in many of the same policies as President Trump in the United States. We need common sense solutions, and we need to focus on what really matters to the Australian people. Men should not be in women's sports, especially boxing. Men in women's clothing should not be confusing our children in school. Over 3.7 million households in our country are experiencing hardship in feeding their families. This is an utter disgrace. The Trumpet of Patriots, when elected, will ensure that Australians do not go to bed hungry at night. Our party is in this election to win. And I take the opportunity here today to invite the 82,000 members of the United Australia Party and members of all political parties to join us, the Trumpet of Patriots, to support me and my team at this election. We can and we will make Australia great. The Trumpet of Patriots is a registered political party with the Australian Electoral Commission. We will be on the ballot and we will reform the political process in our country to protect and defend our democracy. In the coming days and weeks, the Trumpet of Patriots will announce our policies and our candidates, and we hope to, well, we will change the state of our economy, and we will bring back prosperity for all Australians. Now we have time to take 4 or 5 questions, and welcome to put those questions to me or Mr. Palmer, and I can see that we have one eager member of the media with his hand is already raised, so the question will be going to you, sir, but we might just do 4 or 5 because I do have a flight to get back to Newcastle to the seat of the Hunter to give it all I've got.
Well, my question is to Clive Palmer.
That's surprising.
It
That's
is
a question for
surprising,
me.
Mr. Palmer.
Yeah.
What does success look like given the notion that Sue Ellen Wrighton is the next Prime Minister is plainly potty?
Well, it's certainly not potty, and that's because there's a very low entry for journalists in this country that don't have really the proper analytic skills. If we have a look about it, you'll find in the coming days that President Trump's policy in Australia has the support of more than 30% of Australians. And you'd see a party taking that same support up against the coalition. You'd see seats falling for our party and winning seats in the House of Representatives. And that's why we're here to do it. It's happened in the United States. It'll happen in Australia too.
Mr.
Palmer,
Palmer,
just
Mr.
ask
Palmer,
about
you
preferences
spent, Mr. Palmer,
for-
Mr. Palmer, you
Yes.
spent 120 million.
Yeah.
The last election, you got 1 senator elected. That's a lot of money for 1 senator. Are you sure this is the smartest use of your money? Are you going to spend that much money again? Wouldn't it be better spent upgrading a regional hospital or doing something practical for the people?
I think in reality, we need to help the people of Australia out of the calamity that we're in. You'll recall at the last election, we advised people that interest rates would increase. That was one of our main policies, and we needed to cap them. And you'll see that the governor of the Reserve Bank said, "Oh no, they're not going to go up. They'll stay as they are." And look what's happened to Australia. Interest rates have gone up. Today, we hear that the Reserve Bank's dropped the interest rate by 0.25%.
But the question is
Yeah,
about your
hold
money.
on, hold
Are you
on.
sure it's a good use of
Yeah,
your
well,
money?
it's a good use of my money to
How
inform.
much will you spend?
Well, I can answer you if you'll let me. Right? It's a good use of my money because at the last election we spent $100 million saying that the COVID vaccine wasn't safe and effective, and it's proven not to be safe and effective. And 5 million Australians didn't have the vaccine. That's $20 each based on your calculations, and that was a good investment. And certainly it's a good investment to free this country from the waste and corruption that is occupying the public service and the government, from the lobbyists who are in this house every day to see members of parliament. I've been here, I've met them, I've heard what they've wanted to say, and that's not the way you should govern a country. So I'm more than happy to spend my funds on something productive, defending the right of free speech, and whatever's required to be spent, it'll be spent.
Mr. Palmer, how will preferences work? How will you preference the major parties? And can you just clarify, will you run candidates in all seats or just those?
Well, we're thinking of running candidates in all of the seats at the present time. It's very hard to tell you what the position will be on preferences because you'll appreciate we've kept this very quiet, right, for obvious reasons. And it's news to Mr. Albanese, if he's watching. and news to Peter Dutton and his team, what we're doing. So we'll have to have discussions with them. But the main thing is to do what's best for this
You
country.
put the major parties last time.
Well, I didn't know that. I think we put in some states, we put the Liberal Party second. In some states, we put the Labor Party second. It goes up to all the different states. But it's really up to policies, I think. That's where. Well, our policies, we can see them from our release that went out today. There's a couple of good grabs for you there, but we can't tell you all the news in one day or you won't come to our press conferences. Well, our biggest policy is to cut government waste, much as Elon Musk is doing in the United States.
So what's department's first in your list?
The same way, we plan to have a team of people, and I'm not standing for election, I'm merely a party functionary, but I'm sure that the party wants to have a team of people who can go through the procedures in Australia that sees more and more of the public sector having more and more of our capital. You've got to realise the public sector doesn't create wealth, and it's the private sector that does. So the more money we've got in the private sector creating jobs, wealth and growth, bigger taxation, the better taxation base we've got.
So what, Mr. Palmer, you said you believe in all of Donald Trump's policies. Do you believe tariffs? Should Australia be imposing tariffs, and will the tariffs on steel affect demand for Australian iron?
I don't think so. I think we need more steel production in Australia. We need more manufacturing in Australia. We export so much iron ore to China and Japan. They use that for their manufacturing base and become the world's largest manufacturer. We want jobs and value-added jobs in Australia. We've got substantial iron ore deposits, substantial coal deposits, bauxite, copper, molybdenum. Those minerals should be developed here. And rather than export iron ore for something like $100 a tonne, it's better to export steel for a couple of $1,000 a tonne. But we need good technology. Our technology in our steel mills is a century before us, and that's why we're falling behind. So it makes sense to invest in our country. The other policy we've got is that we've got a terrible housing crisis in this country. And when you look at some of the solutions that was adopted by the Japanese government, when the same thing happened in Tokyo and Yokohama, was to put a fast train just 120 kilometres outside of Tokyo and to develop cheaper land for their population where they could all commute to the city within 20 minutes. The government could do that. They could show the leader so our young people could afford to have a home. And that would bring down our cost of living as well. So that's a very important policy. You're after a policy, I gave you one.
Mr. Palmer,
Would you like one to Sue Ellen?
how did you come to be
No, certainly not. You'll recall that we had a action in the High Court last week, which was announced. I got a telephone call, and they said that they admired the things that I'd done, the things what our policies were, and they wanted to see whether I'd be interested in joining the party, which I did, and whether I'd stand for election to be the chairman of the party, which I agreed to do. And we've certainly not paid them any money. Voluntarily, so I'm a voluntary member. Of course, you've got the Labor and the Liberal parties got together to make sure that we could never compete with them. They could spend $90 million at every election, but smaller parties wouldn't be able to do that. So it was a good opportunity, and we thought we'd take advantage of it for the Australian people.
Senator, in regards to your High Court challenge, in regards to your High Court challenge, wealth lawyers sort of said that party may have voluntarily.
Well, that's a bit of a joke because we're the #1 transparent party. That's how you all know we spent $100 and something million on that election. So that's just rubbish. But of course, that's the United Australia Party. We have to accept that. The United Australia Party is not running in this election. The Trumpets of Patriots have been registered since 2005 as a political party in this country. They're entitled to contest the election. I, as a citizen, am entitled to support any party I wanted and to vote for any party I wanted. We still have a democracy in this country, although the Uniparty wants to close it down. They want to make the Teals uncompetitive. They want to make the United Australia Party uncompetitive. But we have to abide by the rules, and that's what we're doing. So 2 questions, 2 points. I get all that.
You previously campaigned. Now, we can see that this is more of a project to take.
Well, it's an attempt to have common sense policies for Australia. Like some of our policies, if you look at them prima facie, might be pro one side or the other, right? But we think that really we've got to do what's best for the country. We've got to bring back accountability. Because Peter Dutton said on that wonderful broadcasting body that runs Four Corners, one of Australia's preeminent broadcasters, that he wasn't 60 Minutes. He wasn't a Donald Trump. Well, that alarms us because we think Donald Trump's been very effective in reducing public expenditure. We don't want another coalition government that does nothing. We remember Scott Morrison, the man with 7 portfolios, and we remember the centralisation of power. When I was in this parliament, I remember how difficult it was to get anything done for the Australian people. I don't think we should look at it as taking votes from anybody, because that presupposes that Australians are locked in, that they don't think that they haven't got freedom of choice. Sorry? Well, I don't think there are too many around. They've been declining in previous years as they have for the Labor Party. It's the Uniparty we're up against, and we think these ideas are good. After all, why should everyone be so alarmed? Because the idea of an election, of a democracy, is to have a battle of ideas. You don't have to agree with all of them, but we have to defend that in Australia. That's a very important thing. No, that's the name of the party when we joined it. And it's very appropriate for this election because it's the Trumpet of Patriots. It's the Trumpet. I stutter a little bit, so I say the Trumpet of Patriots. That's what it is. It's a clear definition of what you're voting for. So when our people get into the voting box, when people decide who they want to vote for, do they want to vote for the Greens? I can't see that. Do they want to vote for the Teals? Well, they shouldn't, right? But do they want to vote for the Trumpet of Patriots? Of course they do, especially the Trumpet part. That's if they believe in Trump's policies. But we've got to go. I know that guy wants one over there, and I knew him when I was in Parliament before. He's a wonderful journalist. He was a top guy. A veteran. He believed in the people's right to know. So I'll have to recognise him for a last question. Don't feel bad about it. Buy him a drink later. What have you got? Come on.
Sorry.
All right.
I just ask a couple of things. You'll be running above the line in the Senate.
Every Senate will be above the line, but I think.
And can I just ask you, just a couple of policies you took for the last election?
Yeah.
3% cap on home loans and the 15% license on iron ore.
Well, I think I can't say because in a democracy you've got to do what your party says, and as I explained to you, the policies will be released in the next couple of months. But personally, I think there should be a cap on home loans because I think home loans is very important. We've had a lot of social disruption in this country. We've seen banks foreclose on a lot of Australians' homes, and they've had to be sold, and they've been sold to immigrants that have come to this country, nearly 1 million or so in the last year. If you take the student visas into account, they've cashed up from selling their house in Europe, and those Australians are now without homes. And a lot of them are hungry. And the Albanese government gives $1 million a year to Food Bank, and they've got 3.7 million households that need assistance. I mean, why? Why is that the situation? Well, we know in Australia you might have a husband and wife both working very hard, and they're doing everything they can to protect the home for the children and looking after their health and their other needs, etc., like that. But their basic income may be above the threshold of social security because it's going to the home. Their children, they go without food, and that's a really bad thing for our country. They can't get any support, and the government could support if they wanted to, Food Bank and other organisations to feed people in this position. I was personally concerned about it. That's why I donated $5 million, because I wanted to encourage other Australians, other billionaires that do nothing all day but sit on their arse to put some money in. But it hasn't had that effect. People tend to like to keep their money. So I think the government should step in there.
Why don't you run yourself, Mr. Palmer? You're inspired by Donald Trump. Why not run yourself?
Because I'm too old. You can see I'm 71. Give me a break. I've got to spend some time with my children, my wife, the people I love. That's what I've got to do. But I want someone that's got vision like Sue Ellen Wrightson. Someone that's a real Australian that won't give you a blank fish answer every time you ask a question, if you ever get brave enough to ask her a question, that will smile rather than have a grim face. Will say we won't put questions to the minister in the Senate or the minister in the lower house and walk sideways like a crab, but will allow journalists to find out what will happen. We want to reinvigorate, what's that mean? Reinvigorate the political debate in this country. We want people to disagree with each other. We want to discuss policies, because that's how we'll get the best policies for this country. And I'm an Australian. I believe in this country. I believe in what you're doing is very important in democracy. I don't want the journalist community of Australia to be public servants that just take press releases and mindlessly publish them in papers. And
Question,
yeah.
Ms. Llewellyn then.
Why are you cutting this?
Sorry, I'm going to go to the lovely lady here in the front.
Ms. Ranson, you said that you encouraged the members of the ballot join.
No. The answer is no. He's firmly focused on his job and what he's doing. He was elected as a member of the United Australia Party, and as of this morning, having had a conversation with Senator Babet, it's his intention to stay firmly united with the United Australia Party.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sorry, this fellow here hasn't
Trump
answered yet.
administration speaks quite happily. Justice matters. Mr. Palmer, you've got some conflict at the moment with the Australian Investment Commission. One of the policies of your party be to see those actions brought to an end, like the Trump administration.
Maybe I can help with this.
Well, I might just quickly chime in because President Trump has been doing something very, very good for the American people. He set up the Department of Government Efficiency, and in recent days there were $4 trillion worth of Treasury funds that have been paid, but they don't know where that money has gone. And I highly suspect that the way that this government is being run, there would probably be similar question marks to be put to the budgetary process, where funds have gone, money going to Garvey, money going to Kovacs shuts shop overnight, and we don't know where Australian taxpayer dollars have gone. And I must say that while ever Australians are going hungry, they can't afford to pay their rent, and we've got people sleeping on the streets. We have got to turn our attention to Australians and have less of a focus on international affairs and international aid. I will let Mr. Palmer answer the second part of that.
I can say one thing. I don't like saying much, but I can say one thing. It's disgraceful that the Albanese government has given $600 million to the PNG government to run a football team. And you know, whether you're left or right or whatever you believe, that money could be better spent feeding Australians of all different persuasions. So the priorities that we're saying in the country are wrong. Priorities should first be for Australians. Now, with the question you raised about ASIC, ASIC have been in dispute with me for, I think it's from 2012, the matter they're talking about. We're now in 2024. You're told in Australia, 20, whatever, 25, or I might be in the right year, but that's why I'm not standing for Parliament. But you know, it's 15 years. They don't seem to want to bring these matters forward. They haven't even had a committal. They haven't brought them even forward before the courts. Well, no, just one item, because I want to have the matter heard, because there's nothing in it. So we've written to them and say, what is it that we've done dishonest? And they say, we don't know. You think they'd tell you, wouldn't you? But they don't know. So they're going to get in a lot of trouble for doing that. But warfare in politics, that's what happens. I'm okay. I'm not complaining about it, because I can defend myself, believe it or not. Even though I'm still 71, I can still defend myself. And I'm completely innocent of everything. But that's a negative to get involved in politics in this country. It's a real negative, because I don't borrow any funds. I don't use mum and dad's funds. It's all my money. And I'm accused by ASIC of defrauding myself of my own money. That's what they've told us. So I've written a check from my check account to a company that I own, and they say that that's committing a fraud. But there's no one that knows you can't be convicted of that, but they won't bring it to court, unfortunately. No. Oh, well, sorry, we did have discussions with Pauline Hanson at one stage, and she said she had to be president for life. She wanted to be like Idi Amin or someone like that. And I said, well, you can't be president for life. Not even I can be president for life. I'm only president for the next year or so, right? If I get re-elected. So that wasn't a very palatable thing to say to the Australian people. We need to have presidents for life. We need to install dictatorships. But what we need is someone that cares about our country. And we need to have a fair and an honest debate. And we need to put away our prejudices, whether it be left and right, and say what's good for this country. And we need common sense solutions.
Have you approached any other MPs about joining your party?
No, we haven't, because we've kept it a secret. Because we knew if we didn't keep it a secret, we wouldn't get all of you to come today and we wouldn't get any coverage. So we had to keep it very tight. And it was good to see how United Australia Party was legislated so they couldn't stand. That's pretty fair in a democracy to have legislation to stop someone. And then they went to the High Court. The High Court said they couldn't stand. That's pretty good for democracy. And so I thought, I'm not going to stay in the United Australia Party anymore. I want to get into a party that's registered.
Is it still your intention to challenge?
So, okay.
Is it still your intention to challenge the electoral?
Well, we'll see what happens, we'll see. The election may give an answer, who knows, Anyway, we've really got to go, but God bless Australia and God bless all of you for what you do. Even if I don't like some of you, you don't like me, you're doing a great job for Australia. God bless you. See you.